This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
Next on the 5 o'clock report.
He's got to be very careful here not to concede anything to Iran on the sovereignty of the Straits of Hormuz.
We're going to do everything in our ability to hold people accountable.
I want to encourage the entire nation to pray.
The largest single investment in Erie's downtown.
Life doesn't stop when you get a cancer diagnosis.
Now, let's go to the newsroom.
Good afternoon and welcome to the broadcast. I'm Family Life News anchor Sarah Harnish. President Trump spent the morning in the Situation Room huddled with his national security team. The topic was a final determination on Iran. They emerged today and so far no word on what the president will do next. Iranian state media is already reporting how the negotiating is going. Here's Fox News.
There's a lot of reports coming out on the Iranian side. One of them said 8 of the 10 items that they've seen on the list are non-starters for the Iranian side. Do you think we're getting anywhere here?
Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery replied he's retired from the U.S. Navy.
I do think we are. I think the president's trying his hardest to have the narrative that he's the final decision maker. That's why there's this extended decision-making, Situation Room meetings. But this is really important. He's got to be very careful here not to concede anything to Iran on the sovereignty of the Straits of Hormuz or the fact that it's an international transit lane.
The news at 5 is no news on Iran yet. On Capitol Hill, former Attorney General Pam Bondi made a rare appearance today before lawmakers behind closed doors, answering questions about the Epstein files that weren't released. James Comer is chairman of the House Oversight Committee.
We're going to do everything in our ability to hold people accountable and try to understand how the government failed. But they did. They failed. There's no question.
Several of Epstein's victims were waiting outside as Bondi walked in.
We just hope that she is here to, make some sense out of everything, because the last time we were here, there was a lot of lashing. There was a lot of dehumanizing the survivors. So we hope that she finds it in her heart to speak the truth today.
In the Lone Star State, there was a plea for prayers out of Dallas, Texas, after a major explosion at a 23-unit apartment complex.
I want to encourage our entire city, this entire state, the entire nation to come together and pray for all the people, all the families who are affected by this tragedy we are experiencing here today in our city.
The building was leveled. All signs point to a gas leak as the source. 3 people, including a child, are known to have died when that building blew up. Other victims could be buried in the rubble.
We will continue searching the building until every last inch of that property has been searched.
Fire department official Jason Evans choking up, speaking to the press, saying it's hard for any first responder when a child is harmed.
And that is, excuse me. And that, we're parents.
From Texas to Virginia, a bus failed to slow down in a construction zone on I-95 today, striking several cars. 5 people were killed and 34 injured. New York's Attorney General Tish James is launching an investigation into FIFA over World Cup ticket pricing and seat complaints.
FIFA has raised the price of tickets for 90 of its 104 games, and the final game at Giant Stadium, where ticket prices are at $4,000.
Customers say seating maps were modified after they bought their tickets. FIFA says it uses dynamic pricing, a practice where ticket prices fluctuate based on demand. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro made a pit stop in Erie, Pennsylvania this morning to break ground on a 195-room hotel that will revitalize downtown Erie.
Breaking ground on one of the most important and I think the largest single investment of private development in Erie's downtown history.
While there, he said the project would not have been possible if Democrats and Republicans hadn't worked together in Erie, PA.
You should take note of the fact that all of your elected leaders in this community are working together. Don't take that for granted. That is a special and important thing that allows for progress in a community, and I will say that does not exist everywhere.
Now to your money. With inflation running at 3.8%, millions of Americans are struggling to keep up. ABC's Elizabeth Schultze.
New government data shows Americans are saving less of their income than at any other time in the last 4 years. The personal savings rate dropped sharply to 2.6% in April. 1 year ago, it was twice that high. And typically in a healthy economy, that savings rate is around 6%. So this does suggest that people are dipping into their savings to help pay for essentials like gas and groceries.
Hey, there is good news on one front, though. Gas prices are coming down. The price at the pump is 16 cents lower than this time last week. In fact, the nationwide average had its biggest single-day drop since 2008 yesterday. According to AAA, regular unleaded now averages $4.39 a gallon. That is the lowest pump price that we've seen since May 1st. Still to come on the 5 o'clock report, New York's primary looms in June. Bruce Blakeman versus Kathy Hochul. Where are we at? And the church and AI, yay or nay? The Capital Connection team breaks it all down after a peek at weather.
I'm Kevin Williams, and here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. The weekend is upon us. It shapes up relatively well weather-wise. It's going to be a cool start, with temperatures tomorrow struggling to get much past 60, but then climbing to or beyond 70 with a fair amount of sunshine for Sunday. In the meantime, for tonight, it'll be partly cloudy near Lake Erie and across central Pennsylvania. Elsewhere, it becomes mostly cloudy where it has not already, with a passing shower. It'll turn breezy as well where it is not already. Low temps 40s and low 50s. It's a cool day tomorrow, breezy too. Morning clouds and a sprinkle, then some sun. High temps upper 50s and 60s. Not as cool on Sunday with a fair amount of sunshine. High temperatures then mid 60s to the middle 70s.
All right, Kevin, it is Friday, and it's time to check in with our Capital Connection crew, Dan Bartkowiak with PA Family and Jason McGuire with New York Families. We begin with the Pennsylvania state budget. Let's listen in.
The state budget is due in about a month, and I know there's a lot of wheeling and dealing and lobbying that goes on in Harrisburg this time of year. What are the spending items or policy issues that the Pennsylvania Family Institute is keeping an eye on?
Yeah, well, certainly you mentioned spending. I think it's spending within our means. Our governor wants to spend billions more in his budget proposal. A majority of the state's rainy day fund would cover those costs, and frankly, it's just not sustainable. So there's a lot of talk about education. We certainly need to have better investments in education. The federal education tax program, we need Shapiro to opt Pennsylvania into that program. Really pushing back, too, on ill-advised projected revenue sources, marijuana legalization. If you calculate the costs with more marijuana commercialization, it's really going to bring in more harm to communities.
Primary Day in New York is June 23rd, if I look at the calendar, Jason, so that's fast approaching. One-party rule has been the political reality for almost a decade in New York. I think the last time Republicans controlled anything was the state Senate back in 2018. So it's been a while. Do you see any of that changing after this year's midterms?
Well, I don't see major changes in the legislature. There will probably be some movement a little bit this way, a little bit that way, but certainly not that's going to tip control back into the Republicans at this point. That's going to be probably a longer-term strategy for years down the road that will take to claw back control of those legislative chambers.
Supermajorities, anything like that, and going to be changing as a result of the election?
It could. I mean, we're on such the bubble now in the supermajority that, one or two seats this way or that way could change it, but it has little direct impact on the legislature itself and what bills do move or blocked. So it's not really a key point for us at this point.
Yeah. One other thing, and we'll move on. There's been polling that suggests that Bruce Blakeman is closing ground and actually maybe even leading Governor Hochul when it comes to independent voters. Do you put much stock in that polling, Jason?
It's awfully early to put a lot of stock in the polling. It's not that the race isn't going to tighten. It will tighten considerably. There's probably 32% of the population is going to vote Republican no matter what. And then, as we saw in the Lee Zeldin race 4 years ago, do you have enough to overcome the final 5 or 6% you need to actually win the race?
Dan, let's go back to Harrisburg. Governor Shapiro got almost 500,000 more votes in his uncontested primary last week than Stacey Garrity did in hers. Any reason for Republicans to be worried about that?
Well, I think what I would draw attention to for Republicans is how the votes came in. Nearly half the votes for Josh Shapiro, was around 44%, came in through mail-in voting. And for Republicans, mail-in voting was about 22% for Stacey Garrity. So I'm not a fan of mail-in voting. We had absentee ballots available before, but it is now one significant way to calculate votes in Pennsylvania, and I think you can't overlook that. The fact is, in Pennsylvania, while there's still more registered Democrats than Republicans, the margin's shrinking. Since Shapiro was elected, now there's been a decrease in registered Democrats, an increase in registered Republicans. There's a large rise in registered independents. So I think there's opportunities specifically for Republicans to make a case to some of those independent voters before November's election that they should keep in mind.
All right. Let's switch gears and talk about artificial intelligence. I know this is an issue in the news a lot. The Pope issued some guidance recently on preserving human dignity in the face of AI. He compared AI to modern-day Tower of Babel. Dan, I'll begin with you. From a faith perspective, what is most concerning to you when it comes to the proliferation of artificial intelligence?
Yeah, well, certainly AI is much in the news, and my concern would be Christians avoiding the conversation. The Pope recognized digitalization, AI, robotics, it's transforming our world, and it's the dominant conversation, really, our culture's facing. And certainly need guardrails with regards to AI, and I think some of those are on the personal level. I can always remember Pastor John Piper. He asked ChatGPT for a prayer, spits out, wonderful words, and Piper asks, "Is that praise?" And he emphatically says no, and we can't be so dependent on a machine. I think at the same time, I appreciate the words former U.S. Senator Ben Sasse, who we've brought up before, had an article recently, Wall Street Journal, saying the biggest divide in America is going to be between people who figure out harnessing that technology versus those that are outsourcing their affections and their habits. And so I think there's this harnessing versus outsourcing. I think Christians can and should be part of harnessing the tools of AI.
Yeah. Do you use it or does it use you? There's a great debate there about that. I saw recently, Jason, the Surgeon General issuing its very first warning about screen use in children, and AI is a part of that conversation. What challenges or opportunities has AI presented the church and Christians in general when you think of this issue?
It's a challenge and an opportunity. I mean, really both are there. If you look back, you remember how the cell phone, the mobile phone, has become such an important part of our lives. And there are pros and cons of it. We're seeing problems of screen time with kids, but at the same time, there's tremendous benefit now for churches who are using live streaming and are reaching out to their communities through social media. I think the same is going to be true of AI. There are going to be some definite benefits of it, and then there are going to be some real challenges when we begin to form emotional attachments with AI chat bots and things along those lines that are becoming a problem for some people.
Yeah.
So the challenge for us is going to be, how do we use it as a tool and not become subject to it as our master?
That's our Capital Connection crew, Dan Bartkowiak with PA Family and Jason McGuire with New York Families. Great men and great organizations. Go check them out online as they fight for faith and freedom. You can listen to the entire Capital Connection feature online anytime at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or at familylife.org. On deck next, a story of an unlikely person climbing Mount Everest. This is the 5 o'clock report on Family Life.
Where is your treasure? Hi, I'm Rob West with another Faith and Finance Minute. In Matthew 6:21, Jesus says, "Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." In other words, what you value most is shaping who you become. We often look to money for security, peace, and control, but the more we rely on it, the more it can quietly take hold of our hearts. That's why this is more than a financial issue. It's a spiritual one. Generosity can help, but it's not the solution by itself. The real question is, what do you love most? Because when Christ becomes your treasure, everything else falls into place. Money becomes a tool, not a master. So take a moment and ask yourself, where is your heart heading? Because your treasure is already leading the way. We can help you learn to manage your money according to biblical principles when you download the free FaithFi app. You'll find it on our website at faithfi.com.
Finally, at 5, 274 climbers reached the peak of Mount Everest last week. That is the most in a single day, breaking a record. One of those hikers, though, was a UK woman with stage 4 cancer. Shauna Burke recorded an inspirational message from the summit for anyone who's struggling.
Life doesn't stop when you get a cancer diagnosis, that, you can hold on to hope. And I think human beings, we're stronger than we think we are.
Burke is the first advanced cancer patient to summit the Himalayan peak. Her message, keep going and look up. And that's the world that we live in for Friday, the 29th of May. June is less than 3 days away. I'm Sarah Harnish, and this is Family Life News.